All right. Welcome all. Thank you so much for making the time to dial in. It's great to see you. And this is the OutSystems user group in Sydney, Australia. We're joined once again by some great tech leads in our community. Leonardo Fernandez, John Salamo, Rafa Ranieri, Schwalmeller, and Nick Van Finkard. So today is event 2 of 3 of our Forge-athon. So just to recap I know there's a few people that are joining us tonight that weren't a part of the first event. And I'd just like to say, first of all, don't worry. It's okay if you didn't see the first event. You're more than welcome to participate here. And I think you'll find that you'll be able to integrate just fine. So the vision of our Forge-athon, first of all, is the ultimate goal is that we're looking to work together to build Forge components that we're going to look to publish into the OutSystems Forge so that the community can make use of and enjoy those Forge components. So the way that this is structured is that event 1 was really like a meet and greet, I guess you could say. We were brainstorming some ideas of how a couple of teams could find a couple of things to build and to self-organize into teams around particular themes of development that we'd be interested in participating in. And so what we'll look to do today is for the few of you that are joining us tonight that weren't a part of event 1, don't worry about that. We'll be able to find teams for you to join in as well. So with event 2 tonight, what we're looking to do is to now hear from our tech leads who are going to be our team leads in each of the 5 teams that we've built here, and they're going to openly share knowledge in terms of some great techniques to use in these themes of development that we've picked out, and you can see the 5 of them here. So they're all going to take about 15 minutes each to be able to get into that a bit, share some tips, and share their screens and share their knowledge. Hi, Schwal. Thanks for joining. So we'll kick that off in about 10 minutes or less, and then the 5 team leads will be able to go through that. We do have a lucky door prize again, so one of you today, whatever time zone it is for you at the moment, will be coming away with a nice little OutSystems pack, courtesy of OutSystems. And then what we're going to do, and apologies to our international friends that the times here are quoting Australian Eastern times, but so basically in about an hour and a half, what we're going to do is we're going to leave this Google Meet for this event, and we've got some links for you to join where you'll jump into your teams and as a team be able to spend about 25 minutes, up to 25 minutes, speaking within your teams to talk about event 3, which is the big event, right? Actually building this stuff. So building your strategy, how you're looking to all cooperate as team members and complement each other to ultimately act as a team to build this Forge component, which is the event 3 itself. So let's dive in. So first of all, let's hear from Leo, who's going to get into a bit of how to capture a screenshot to aid troubleshooting.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. I'm going to share my screen because we have actually, might come as a surprise, but we have actually finished our Forge component. Not only have we finished our Forge component, but it's already in production. So I'm going to show you Forge component working. So we sold this to Google, and they've implemented it in Google Meet. And it starts by reporting a problem. If you do a report problem in Google Meet, this is the work that we've been doing. And you can report an issue or suggest an idea. And if you report an issue, you can select the category of the issue you're reporting and describing your issue in here. And you can also send a screenshot of your Google Meet. If you had an issue, some issues with video quality, or maybe some of the avatars didn't load properly, and you describe your issue in here and you send that to Google. So, okay, so I was obviously kidding when I said that this is actually our Forge component. This is something that we are being inspired by this feedback functionality from Google Meet. And we're going to build functionality similar to that, where you can embed our Forge component in your app and have this flow to submit feedback and recording a screenshot of your app, and maybe also sending some logs from your app to your support team. Okay. So that was a great preview of what we'll be building. In terms of how do we accomplish that, in OutSystems, I created a proof of concept here to capture the screenshots. Now, I'm doing this in Firefox. I could actually do this in both. When you click capture screenshot, first you need to, because of course we're accessing your browser, your pixel information, and you need to give permission for that. So I'm going to select this screen. So as you can see, this is showing a preview of the screenshot that it will take. And when I click allow, then it captures the screenshots. And right now we're rendering it on the screen, but then later on we would attach it and submit it as a feedback. So this is just a proof of concept of this technical capability to capture a screenshot and obtain a screenshot in the application. In Google Chrome, the experience is very similar. I still need to grant permission for my app to grab my screenshots. I can choose a specific window, or I can choose a specific tab in Google Chrome. So for example, I could take, if I have multiple tabs of my application open, I could select a specific tab and then grab screenshots. Oh, it looks like it's not working in Google Chrome. So we're gonna perhaps start by fixing this bug, and the proof of concept that I built obviously was using some JavaScript that I took from an internet forum. I have had to adapt it slightly because I was having a similar issue in Firefox. Looks like I fixed it in Firefox, but it's not working anymore in Google Chrome. But basically, this line of JavaScript asks for permission of the user, and then when we grant permission, we can work. And there's quite a few lines of code, but basically, we're grabbing a screenshot in here and then converting it to PNG and assigning it to an output parameter. And from that point, once we have that action, we can just pretty much invoke it and obtain the screenshot as an output parameter. Yeah, so that's what we're going to build in the next few weeks.
Wow. I'm just laughing the whole time, Leo, because like at first I'm acting like I'm shocked that you've already got this far with your Forge component. Then I remember it's you, Leo. And so then I'm not shocked at all. But I mean, obviously it's looking fantastic and quite promising. So perhaps your team now is able to really start looking at a number of browsers, like see how much you can support. So I mean, Edge, even Brave, because I believe that Brave has a different rendering engine to Chrome. It doesn't use Blink. So perhaps your team would be interested in seeing how many different solutions it can work with and QA that a bit. And because then you'll be able to specify with your publishing of your Forge component what it would officially support.
Yeah, sure.
Even as a like with your proof of concept, like perhaps some example code that comes with the utilization of the Forge component. We could have things like, say, like I'm assuming that this is going to be limited in scope to the browser rather than for mobile apps.
It actually works in mobile. I haven't tested, but it should work on mobile as well.
I think your team would be really interested in using the Forge component in those different use cases, but also a PWA as well. It should be basically the same thing, but it'd be interesting to see some example code that's using the Forge component.
Yeah. Cool.
Fantastic stuff. That was an amazing way to start tonight. All right. So next, I'm going to hand over to my buddy Rafa Ranieri, who's going to be talking us through JavaScript best practices.
Hey everyone, thank you, Aaron. Let me share my screen here with you. So hopefully everyone is seeing. Still going through. Just one. Perfect. Now I can see.
We're ready to go.
So our team is me, Andy, Muhammad, Ibrahim, and also Ferdinand from Phoenix, and we are willing to do progress bar JavaScript components. And I am not cheating because I didn't do it yet, Lau. It's cheating. You did it before, which was meant to do. I will keep that in mind for the next time. But jokes apart, our project is basically about componentizing a JavaScript library. I can show you guys what it would like. So basically, the idea is to have an SVG animated in a way that anyone can use in OutSystems. So we will get mostly this library with all these functions and try to do an OutSystems component for it. And just a second, let me go back to the presentation. I want to present it. And our challenge is basically, oh, sorry, technical issues. And our challenge is basically to implement this JavaScript library as an OutSystems component, right? So because of that, we thought it would be nice for us to talk a little bit about JavaScript best practices in the platform, because as simple as it seems, in fact, with OutSystems, never mind, it is simple. It's true. It's simple. Okay, you guys got me. But if you are trying to do something with JavaScript in the platform, you have to take some things in mind. You have to keep some things in mind. And they are the best practice that OutSystems recommends. To talk a little bit about that and to share a little bit of knowledge, we defined 3 rules. The first one would be something about try always to use OutSystems as much as possible instead of JavaScript. But if it's not possible, like our case, we need to componentize JavaScript library, so we will not be able to do it with pure OutSystems. So in this case, if you have to use this type of JavaScript or this type of level of JavaScript, please keep in mind that first, you should always try to wrap your actions in the most granular way as possible, and also keep your code's comments all the time. So here, for example, I did an example. It's a generic example. It's not actually the functions that we will need. But what I did is I created a client action with JavaScript nodes, calling the function, passing the parameters as input parameters that we will need. So instead of having a bunch of JavaScript calling everything, always keep in mind that the best practice is to wrap your function in a client action and use this client action as the action to call the actual JavaScript. Okay. The second rule is about files, JavaScript files. And in our case, when using the JavaScript library that we want, eventually we will need to import a huge file with all the functions in OutSystems, and we have a best practice for that. Actually, we have some ways to do that in OutSystems, but the preferable way is always to import the file as a resource and make sure the file is minified. For those who doesn't know what a minified file is, you can see here the difference between something that is not minified and something that is minified. You can see that you usually don't have spaces. Normally, when you use some sort of third party to minify your codes, it also changes the names of the variables for example, just a one letter. That will help you to increase the performance in runtime of your JavaScript codes. So it's a very important thing to keep in mind. Okay. Also, the same thing apply for CSS style sheets. We may not be using it for our project, but I thought it would be very nice to share with you guys that every time you need to use some sort of style sheet, external style sheet, it's nice to keep in mind that you should also, if possible, of course, import it as a resource and minify the file. Okay. And our third and honorable mention rule, and I will explain in a bit why it's a honorable mention, is about using the JavaScript at the bottom of the screen. Not sure if everyone knows, but back in the old good times, not sure if it was so good indeed, but anyway, back in the good old times, we had the traditional web apps. We still have it, but normally now new projects are using reactive web apps, and we don't have to worry too much about it. But when we use it, the traditional web apps, you could just inject JavaScript all over your screen. And it created a huge problem sometimes because some JavaScripts were too heavy that when you try to import it at the beginning of your screen, it just like freeze your screen every time you try to import things. So keep in mind that if using traditional web apps with JavaScript, always try to put the JavaScripts that you need. You don't need at the beginning of the flow, at the bottom of your page, to increase the performance and the load speed. Basically, that's it. What I can promise, and I also want a little bit of help from my team, is that you can expect to see the Phoenix logo animated at the ends of the components. It's a very, you can see here that it's a very complex, it's a very complex logo, but if we can animate it, we can animate anything else. So please expect to see that. It's a promise, and that's it. Thank you.
All right, good on you, Rafa. And hey, if you're interested, just in case anyone hasn't worked with this before, there's some great minifying resources online. But this first one is a good one where you can see your original code on the left-hand side that you paste in as is, minify, and you can see it on screen to the right, what it looks like minified. That's a great one. And another great resource I've worked with in the past, this one is minifier.org. This is a good one for, it does both JavaScript and CSS. You can punch in your code and it'll give you the file to download as well. So just want to share those with you. You might find those helpful in your work. All right, let's now hear from my dear friend, Mr. Schwalmeller. He's going to talk about generating documents for dynamic templates.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Sorry.
Got a couple people beside him there with the camera, with the microphones on as well.
Sorry, guys, in case you didn't notice, Half and I are in the office today. We decided to go over meat and beers, in case you didn't notice. Anyway, yeah, we'd like to have fun together and share this moment with you all. Cool. So I'm gonna do it a bit differently. What I'm gonna do is share the journey of how we started our discussion in ideation and how we landed in the idea we're gonna try and implement. First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate that the idea was brought by pretty much by the team members. Many Arnav and their team, they worked together in a company in India, and they had that idea already in mind. There was an idea they brought to the first session, so they had the inspiration and the motivation to do that. And I thought it was brilliant to have worked with them because they have the passion it needed to put something like this in place. The idea was not only great, but they had built up a quick POC already. So I hope many will have the chance to do a little bit of a sneak peek to you guys on what they built. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna introduce the idea and how we did our journey from first idea through ideation and start of implementation. So we put together a few frames on Miro. This is the Miro board we used as a team, and we started by defining our vision. What is it that we want to build? It's not a typical component, Forge component. We decided to build an accelerator for an app. So of course, technically it's published on Forge as a component. But the idea is to build a document generator that can be tapped into other applications to speed up the generation of predefined documents. So we defined our purpose, which should be around enabling end users to create reports or letters, templates to be used by hosting apps without development intervention. The idea, the use case, the inspiration for it came from an application that the team is shaping at the moment. They're building an insurance application that has quite recurrent requirement of having documents generated off the back of claims, of insurance claims. And there's a whole bunch of predefined templates that need to bind the information coming from the insurance policy, or for the claim, or from the product that's been insured, or from the client. These templates are predefined. They need a way for a back office administrator to upload those templates and have the application generating them off the back of the system. Now, the way these solutions are normally built is you involve a team of developers who will build specific code for each document template, because each document template has a separate specific data set. And the idea here is to build something that's dynamic enough for end users, non-developer users, to build their templates with specific placeholders, with some key names, key terms that can be bound to the internal data structure. So you can imagine that an insurance application has a common data module. We have an example of what a typical insurance application data model looks like. This is a sample template. That's a settlement letter that says, "Dear customer," customer would be a placeholder that would need to be replaced by the customer name. Thank you for submitting your claim. Here's your settlement letter. And then two fields that should be bound to the application information. That's the template of a document we want business users to define, and we want the application to be able to generate it automatically. Then, considering that vision, we embarked in an ideation journey where we started by trying to break down the features we see in a solution like this. These tickets came from a brainstorming session we had with the team. Some of them were straightforward, some of them were real challenging. And one of them, the most challenging one, was the data binding. This is really the one that would be the key feature in a solution like this. And that's what we decided to invest more time on. So even if considering the time frame we have in the event, if we don't manage to build the whole solution, we would be happy as a deliverable if we manage to have an automatic dynamic data binding mechanism that can be used in future releases. A next step of the ideation, and this is something that the team brought, that's part of their internal brainstorming. They've been discussing it internally and how the application, how the logic would flow in the component in the application. That helped us uncover some requirements. That's a sample database, a typical insurance app database. Of course, it's a logical level. It's a chunked up version of the database, but we used it to help us inspire on requirements and how to implement the minimum requirements. You'd have a policy with many claims, a claim linked to a user claim to a client, and the policy would have a product attached to it. So that's what we used to frame the requirements of the solution we were building. And then having the data binding as the most complex requirement to be implemented, we started a focused brainstorm session on options, on how to solve the data binding mechanism. We didn't want to just start building. We wanted to discuss as a team and come up with the most feasible and the most elegant solution. And that would get us close to our vision. So we discussed a few ideas. Option one was based on a SQL generator, an automatic SQL generator. The other ones were a bit more technical. As you can see, we have pros and cons for each of the options, and we assessed a lot of different aspects, including which was a very interesting contribution from the team. Why are we talking about JSON payloads and technical structures if we're building something on top of a low-code platform, right? So why don't we provide users and developers a low-code experience? That was a very interesting insight, and that helped us prioritize the option one is the most feasible as the best solution, considering the 4 options we discussed. So we put together some reference materials, some samples, and then we started building a low-fidelity screen mockup with how the experience of the application would be for the data binding configuration. And we got to a very simple idea of consider that the back office user would be creating a template. They would give it a name, select a primary entity. This entity would be leveraging the OutSystems meta model. So we're leveraging the OutSystems database structure. This primary entity would then release an automatic list of associated entities, also leveraging the OutSystems meta model and consuming the foreign keys, displaying the fields, and then the user would be able to map the placeholders in the templates, in the document template, with the fields in the OutSystems database. Relationships in further levels would be infinite. So depending on the complexity of the data model, that can be as dynamic as possible. There's a few scenarios that we decided not to prioritize at the moment, not to have the solution too complex. So in terms of prioritizing, we came up with a mini project plan and tried to do as much as we can in the time frame we have, but making sure that we're implementing what's more important first. So we discussed of splitting the work in a few sprints, and then we started with creating some development tasks, some research activities, and then on a sprint 2, if we managed to implement all this, we would build some reusable components and leverage a PDF generation from an application that Manny has been working on, POC application. So we thought of using the best of both worlds. So we can leverage something pre-built from the OutSystems Forge, like a PDF generation component, and also leverage some smartness, some logic that Manny has already built. And then if we do have the time, we can implement all the functionalities, and we split it into further sprints. Just to wrap it up, I'd like to invite Manny to give everyone a sneak peek on the POC app he built. I think it's a really good idea to give a little bit of a touch on what the idea is. Manny, you ready?
Yep. Thank you, Joe.
No worries. I'll stop sharing my screen. You go ahead, mate.
Yeah. So our component will have an ability to accept the template from the user, as Joe has already showed you the workflow or the flow of our component. So it generally has the two UIs, where the user will have the ability to add the templates to the screen, which may look similar to this. So where he can add the text, plain text, or any kind of HTML text, whatever has the placeholders in it. So in the sample which I'm using, we have kind of 4 placeholders. Placeholder of first name and the last name, and the designation and a salary, and some lorem text for just filling the template and all. So once after the user clicks on the save button, there it runs the 2 actions. One is that one directly saves the template raw data into a template table. Again, this flow is all subjected to change. Like, we haven't decided it, but we're considering this might be the flow, but this is all subjected to change again. So we'll store the raw data into the templates table, and also we'll run an action which actually lists all the placeholders which is available in this particular template content. And once after we get the list of placeholders which are available in this content, then we'll store that in the placeholders table. So here there ends the first page, process of the first page. So user can actually finish adding the template here. So once after that, there comes a mapping page, which is what we are struggling to build the complex data in. So here comes the data binding and everything. So we have the low fidelity screen, where we are thinking to develop something in this way, where the user will have the ability to select the application from the application list which are available on the server. And also after selecting an application, there it shows the all the entities which are associated with that particular application here. And user will have the ability to select the entities as a primary entity. And once after selecting the entity, the associated entities to this entity will all be coming here, and the attributes will also show up. So we have a dropdown which lists all the placeholders against each attribute. So user can easily map the attributes against each placeholder. So in the POC, we made it very simple. So we have an application dropdown which lists all the applications which are available on our server, and it also lists out all the placeholders we have. So currently you can see that we got 4 placeholders, and we can map the data by choosing any attribute which is available in this dropdown. So I have already mapped the values, which are like, I want to map placeholder salary against the salary of the actual data, and the designation and all, which are relevant to the same actual data app, which I'm integrated this Forge component with. And we have a screen where they can easily manage the placeholders. If they want to delete, they can do it. And coming to the integration part, they can simply integrate this component to any of the link or any download button they want to. And on clicking this button, that should pass an ID to our process, and that will actually fetch the data, the actual data which is mapped, and then that replaces the actual content in the placeholders. So this is how we are trying to implement, and that finally downloads the document with the replaced content. So yeah, this is all about our Forge component.
This is amazing stuff, guys. Amazing stuff. Well done. So folks, I just wanted to let you know, my camera isn't on because my video card drive has just crashed on my computer. I'll need to reboot, and I'm not going to do that right now. So just bear with me. Anyway, this is fantastic stuff. So Patricia, I was just looking to connect with you on Slack, please, if you can. You're just looking to stay a couple of steps ahead of the event, if we can be talking there. That's okay.
Yes. Share my screen. You want me to share?
Well, you can. No, that's okay for now. But just talk to me on Slack. I'm sending you messages there, and just want to discuss it as we're presenting here.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's hear from our next presenter, which is Nick van Vingard, who is going to be talking about Service Studio and some debugging tips.
Thank you, Aaron. And yeah, nice to meet everyone. Sorry, I wasn't at the previous event. I was actually ill. And now I'm coming in as a super sub for Osama, who is enjoying some time off, well earned from his hard day job. But yeah, so I'm going to be working with Team 4. So I'm not sure if there are any Team 4 representatives here today. But I just thought it would be good for me to present something more general. Not too technical. I'm just going to run through some Service Studio tips. And a lot of them actually come from the clever developers at PhoenixDX. So we have a weekly, bi-weekly DevTip segment where we share just different ideas around OutSystems development in general, just to speed up our performance and make sure that we get as efficient as possible. So just the first tip that I'm going to show is a super basic one, but an incredibly powerful one, which I would encourage everyone to use. It's the use of Control and O, which opens up the open from environment and allows you to search for any module, and it's quite efficient in searching, and you can search for any module and just open it right up from there. So I don't know about you guys, but I think jumping into the tile where we can see all the applications can get super slow and super cumbersome, and actually drilling into it is quite inefficient and looking for our modules. So jumping straight into Control O and allowing us just to search for the modules is super powerful, super efficient. So yeah, highly recommend it. Then the second one that I got here is to search in other modules. So oftentimes we might be looking for a certain entity or a certain action, or I must say a public entity or public action. And usually we would try to drill into that module and try to look for it, go into the dependency tabs and see where we can find it. But a really easy way to do this is just to use the search functionality in the top right-hand corner and just go search in other modules. And you can search for anything public that is available. So if, let's say, I would like to search for my AIDT table, then I can see that over here, and then you can actually go ahead and add it in as a dependency into your project and use it straight away. And I think it actually zooms you straight into that entity that you just added in. So super easy, super helpful tips just to kind of speed up your development within within Service Studio. All right, so those are just two practical ones within Service Studio itself. Then I want to talk a bit about the concept of rubber ducking. I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever heard this concept. So there's actually a website for this, would you believe it? So rubber ducking is essentially a technique that you can use for debugging. So oftentimes, if you're dealing with a complicated problem within your code or a complicated problem that you need to solve, you can sort of get stuck in your own mind and run around in an echo chamber, which gets real stale real quick. So one tip is to not be stuck in that, not be stuck by yourself trying to figure this thing out, but rather call one of your other developers if you're working in a team, or your tech lead, or anyone else who sort of understands what you're trying to build, and run it by them, bounce it off them. Oftentimes we can find we can find a solution for whatever problem just by restating our problem out loud to anyone who would listen. And if you can't find anyone to listen to you, this website's actually pretty cool, where it has a built-in rubber duck that you can talk to. So you can talk to a duck. Oh, by the way, I didn't say where rubber ducking comes from. So rubber ducking comes from the concept of having some inanimate object on your desk that you can actually talk to and audibly speak out your problem to this inanimate object. And just by speaking it out, you find whatever issue it is. A solution to your problem. So obviously this is a lot better if you have another human speaking back to you, but you have the cyber duck that you can use and ask them questions. So just say hi, and then it doesn't fully understand. So now it's asking me just to describe what my bug is, and it'll just ask silly questions around that. Like, I've never used this. I don't know if it'll be very useful, but just kind of illustrates the point. Yeah, so that's rubber ducking, really good for problem solving and debugging. And then on the topic of debugging, I also want to just speak a bit about the use of service actions for test screens. So what we need, so oftentimes when we're building a solution, we need to test it out or test out whatever we are building, and often data can be a real problem to generate our test application. Data can be a real problem to test whatever piece of code we are trying to develop. So a real handy trick that actually came in super useful for me just this last week is to use service actions. So I have two modules here. So I have the CS, which stands for my core services, and then I just have a basic test application here. So what I've done is I've built the core of my logic just as I would in any of my actions over here. So I have this is for a rate calculation engine. So this is just something that takes in rates and spits out a price. So we generate the code just as we usually would, but then I just create a wrapper around that. So you can see that I have my test wrappers over here. I call my action, and I use a series, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but a series of site properties to run it in test and to set the particular charge date times and start date times to override whatever is in the database. So I use these site properties to reroute my process flow to override some values, and then I wrap all of this into a service action. Now, why a service action? The reason is, if we jump into the test application, so here I have the ability to generate some test data, and I have the ability to set some whatever values I need, because oftentimes data that you need to generate could be reliant or a product of time. So for example, if we need to calculate something over several months, we can't wait for several months to into the future before we can actually test this product in QA. So what we then need to do is we need to find a way to create that data artificially. So this gives us the ability to overwrite whatever we have in the database and generate into the future. And when I run this, when I click the, I was waiting for this to load. Sorry, guys, seems like I have some internet problems here. So when I click to run this action, then I fire off the service action that I created in the previous module. Now, one thing we all know about service actions, which we've read on which hopefully we've gotten from the training forums on the OutSystems community, is that service actions are loosely coupled between modules. So what that means is, if I change the guts of anything within the service action, if I change anything other than the inputs and the outputs, I do not need to refresh dependencies within the parent module that's calling that service action. So that's hugely beneficial, especially if we have a massive cascading dependencies between modules, because as soon as we find a problem, we can just jump into our service, we can just jump back into our core module, change whatever we need to change, publish a single module, and that should roll straight up into the calling application, which allows us to make super quick changes to any problems we might find in our code. Just last thing on that, if we debug in service actions, it's always important to select your entry module as this module. Now, usually what we used to when we debug, you have to specify the actual entry point where you're calling this application from, which traditionally we would say, for service actions, we would say, I'm coming in from the SiteIQ test application. So then the debugger will know, okay, anything coming in from the SiteIQ test application, I need to catch in the debugger. But it won't work for service actions, because service actions are actually just REST APIs that the parent module are calling. So we need to specify that it's coming from this module, because for all intents and purposes, it is like we're calling it within this module over here. So that's what I had to share with you guys. And yeah, look forward to catching up with group 4 in the sessions later. Thank you very much.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Nick. All right. And now let's hear from John Salamo, who's going to be talking about managing dynamic data in OutSystems.
Thanks for those tips, Nick. I think they are helpful, pretty much helpful when you are working with team and just working with OutSystems in general. On my end, let me share my screen. Hoping to present this. I think I got 10 minutes, so let me cover this quickly. For our team, we are hoping to work in dynamic mapping component. The idea is where we have like different fields from different databases. So we are giving a capability for the user to map them field by field and give an output on whatever you would be using that mapping output to kind of populate the target from the source. We're hoping to make it agnostic as much as we can, and hopefully this is something that could be used by different databases technology. And so with my topic in DevTip, I'll be covering like how do we navigate through the dynamic data in OutSystems. There are several use cases that you will need this strategy, particularly nowadays, like with the requirements that we do have, not just in low code but in programming in general. We're not just working with the SQL. We're working with broader structure. Schemaless is one of them, and just like what Team 3 presented, with complex requirements such as that, JSON or other format is needed, not just a tabular structure. So with dynamic data, what I'll be covering is some strategies where we'll be able to work with JSON and the different tools that's available in OutSystems, and the possible use cases where you'll be able to make use of this tooling. So the typical use cases is something that I mentioned about NoSQL, things like MongoDB when you're integrating with that, or the other NoSQL technologies in there. I came across with this scenario when I integrated with Elasticsearch. So we all know Elasticsearch is a document-based storage, and it just provides a different way of thinking when you work with relational database. OutSystems have that relational database, so switching my head to a NoSQL, there are differences in that. So I'll be sharing what are different things that I had implemented for me to navigate that complex path. So the other stuff that you might came across this is like CMS. I think Team 3 is trying to achieve something similar to this, where you kind of work on a structure that can evolve based on the user inputs. So thinking about CMS, you cannot control whatever content the user will be placing in. It could be something that the layout would be just a simple flatten out centered base placeholder. It could be a 3-column layout. So things like that. If you would think about the data structure in terms of a relational database, that's quite challenging and hard to evolve. So the other use case that you will be able to make use of this strategy is when you're working with ETL. While OutSystems is not just the tool for doing this, OutSystems can also work with such ETL. So there are timers, there are BPTs, and mashing up the data on different data sources. This kind of tool set that I'll be presenting could be used. So I'll focus on something that's given. We do have access to SQL capabilities in OutSystems using the advanced widget. There's something available in Forge. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this, Ardo.json. It's a way for you to navigate through the nodes of JSON in the server. In JavaScript, I haven't found a Forge component on this, but it's very simple to pick up the JSON path from GitHub and place it in a page or on your module and be able to make use of the capability of it. So with OpenJSON, I'll start with this native capability of SQL. Imagine that you do have an external data, and you let's say you pull it from a REST API, and it's such a data that you want to join with your internal entity. How would you think about that? You could do a loop within OutSystems for you to fill in the different attributes. That's one. But if you're talking about thousands of records, that's like thousands of iterations. So SQL are good with data sets. They already have the capability to think about an efficient algorithm for you to mash up those data. So in this presentation, I'll be sharing you guys how I was able to achieve a JSON being joined to an internal entity by using OpenJSON. So I got in here the JSON. The scenario that I do have is, let's say you got a compensation system where you're pulling the salary of the employee, plus you got an internal table within OutSystems for all the list of employees. So you got external IDs in here from the compensation system, and marrying that with what you have in OutSystems, where you got like external ID. And so if we are able to join with that, then we are able to intersect the table without doing a loop. And how does the code looks like for that is something like this. So we're passing in a JSON within the SQL. I hope you guys are seeing this, but oh, looks like a bug in there, but it should zoom. But what I'm doing is like there's this OpenJSON. Not sure if you guys are seeing this or it's just me. Do you guys see the SQL pop-up?
Yeah, we're seeing the SQL pop up and it's zooming in, but just
a part of it.
Yeah,
that's odd. Looks like a beta issue, but I open it up. Hopefully this is clearer. But so what I'm doing there is parsing the JSON from that input parameter, and basically joining through a temporary table with the internal table within OutSystems. So if you think about this, there are broad use cases that you could already implement. Things like searching, paging. One of the challenges that we do have is an OR statement between the external table and the internal entity. How you would create that logic. The way we handle that is through this, but bear in mind, of course, that there's a limitation to this kind of strategy. If you're talking about millions of record, think about synchronization. But if you want like live data for thousands of record, this could be a use case that you might want to explore as well. So that's this. The other thing is the JSON path, which is a way for JavaScript to navigate through the node in the client side. So think about it's just querying. You're just querying for a JSON using the browser's resources, browser CPU, the memory within the browser. So if you want to make use of that, you could have this component in here. So this is a sample JSON. You can basically query using the JSON path, and it would return like the result set based on that query. And I got here that example. If I did hit query, it's already in there, but you can see it's filtering out whatever the JSON that I have in the input parameter. So what I just did in there is basically having that screen, query on click, calling the JavaScript, which is using the JSON path. And the JSON path was placed within the scripts. That just came straight from GitHub and place it in there. So the last tool is similar to this. It's just if you want on the server side, if you want to navigate and query in the server side. And this are some technical tools, so bear with me here. This might make sense if you guys would see our product. But hopefully this tips could be used in some other things that you're doing, may it be on the server, may it be on the client or on the database. And hoping to talk with Team 5 soon. Thanks everyone.
All right. Thank you, John. That was awesome stuff. All right, Patty. Now let's go back to the main event.
Yes. So what we have now is first, we had some groups that we built last event, but we probably have people here that wasn't in the first event. So some of these groups are not too many people in. So for example, I know John Salamat, his group, it doesn't have a lot of people. And I don't know, Rafa. So would you mind to tell me if you have a space in your group? So whoever is not allocated in a group, now when we split in the rooms, you can just go to the group you want to be part of, and then you join this group from now to the next event, because this group today is closed. So once we decide after today, there is no more any more people coming in. The next event is just for people who was present today or the first event.
Yeah, Strong, you'd like to say something?
Just on team 3, I think there's 2 more people that are not listed there. So I just would ask the team members to come up and share your names on team 3. Jitendra just did it, so if you guys can add them to the team 3.
Yes, like who is gonna add you guys? So after this, now we have the the announcements for the next event, and then we have a little draw where we're gonna draw OutSystems kit. And after that, you go for the meeting rooms with your team. So if you are not allocating any team yet, if you're not in touch with your leader, team leader, it's the time for you to pick one and go to the team and be part of this team for the next event.
Yeah, we'll share the links to the breakout teams shortly, so don't worry about that. But anyway, yeah, just have a look at that screen and you can see the themes of work that the guys have been looking at developing there. So team one was the screen sharing, not the customary message, but nonetheless, they're the themes of development that are happening within those teams. So if you're new and joining us for the first time in this meet, then you'll be able to look at what teams might interest you and be able to just jump in on that link, whichever one that you'd like to join there. Rafa, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just a correction actually, Aaron. On the team 2, there is also Ibrahim, Muhammad Ibrahim, that is not listed there. And I think Ray actually is from team 3. But if he wants to come to my team, I don't mind to.
Yeah. Look, guys, maybe these are not correct because we from marketing took these names from the middle board, so we might make some mistakes. Doesn't matter what is in this slide. You know what group you are in, and if you are not in a group, please join one of the groups that has less people or you want to work on, and be part of a group from now. And it means that you need to work with your group in the next event. So please commit with what you want to do.
Okay,
All
wonderful.
Right. Any doubt? Do you want to make any questions before we move on? Okay. Let's move. So now I'll ask Yash. Yash, are you here?
Yash wasn't able to stick around for the rest of the event.
Okay, so we go on his place. So just to remember, we are all preparing this little hackathon, the Forge-athon, for the 28th of July. Our initial idea was to do something hybrid, but then we decided to go for completely virtual because a lot of people is not from Sydney. We are going to be at our office in North Sydney, and whoever is from Sydney, if you want to join in person, you are more than welcome. So you can join us and all the team that is part of Sydney and will be there. The other thing is, don't forget, we are giving $300 Amazon voucher for the winners. All the team winner, each of you will get a $300 Amazon voucher plus swags. And we are talking about maybe we are going to have some vouchers as well for food. So I think it's going to be very cool, and we are looking forward to have you there. Do you want to say something else, guys?
Well, I was just going to say, based on what I've seen tonight, the competition is pretty hot right now. I mean, I think my expectations of what was going to come out of this Forge-athon have been greatly exceeded. Let's just say that. There's some pretty cool stuff that's happening already. So
definitely. And you know, the nicest is like who is gonna judge the best one is completely out of this team here. It's gonna be people from OutSystems. So your work is gonna go to Portugal and other places. This committee that Yash is organizing is the committee that will judge which one is the winner. And the prices are good. So $300, you can buy something nice.
And you would have seen that Yash from OutSystems joined this event earlier, because that's how interested he is in the work that we're doing in this user group here. Just looking to see how we're going and what's happening here. So yeah, it's just a reminder for you all in the user group that OutSystems themselves are paying attention to what's happening in this space. So that's something you should be really enthused and excited by.
All right. And before we go to the breakout room, so everyone go to your own, we'll send the link, you go to your own room with your team. We are gonna do a swag draw. I am doing this. I put all the names, the present names here in this software, in this application, this website. And now I'm gonna just pick a random name, and Luis is the winner. Are you here, Luis? Yes, I can see you.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so
I'm from Portugal.
that's awesome.
Yes.
Oh,
Representing OutSystems in its best form. Straight from the motherland.
it's
Fantastic.
great for the
Congratulations.
Motherland. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Should I send an email to you?
Yeah, please send to Cecilia at phoenixdx.com. And
Let me
Cecilia,
just put Cecilia.
and she's gonna give you directions to get the kit. We send by that OutSystems sends directly to you
Okay.
from their headquarters. So it's from Portugal. We're gonna be fast for you this time.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and now we're all going to the Teams meeting. So I would say goodbye. See you on the 28th. Thank you so much for coming. And please get the link in the. Do we have the link here, Aaron? Did you put
They are
it
in the comments already. Yep.
So go for the meeting room that your team is the number, and have fun and work together. So we have a very exciting Forge-athon ahead. Thank you.
We'll be really looking forward to seeing you all again at event 3 in a couple of weeks' time, where we get to see you all make these amazing ideas into reality and see you demo them. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you so much, and we'll see you
Thank
again in a couple of
you.
weeks.
See
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Remember to get your
Bye.
link before you close the meeting.
Bye bye.